Greetings from Exam Heist. We have identified important exam questions. Practice these important questions 2-3 times to get 100% success in exam. Subscribe and comment, share PDF in the below comment section to get PDF of these 40 important questions. If you want to access full dump, please visit www.examheist.com. We have 24/7 support available for your doubts and exam queries.
Question 1. An ACI administrator notices a change in the behavior of the fabric. Which action must be taken to determine if a human intervention introduced the change? Option A. Inspect event records in the EPIC UI to see all actions performed by users. Option B. Inspect, var, log, audit_messages on the EPIC to see a record of all user actions. Option C. Inspect audit logs in the EPIC UI to see all user events. Option D. Inspect the output of show command history in the EPIC UI. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Inspect audit logs in the EPIC UI to see all user events. Question 2. An engineer is creating a configuration import policy that must terminate if the imported configuration is incompatible with the existing system. Which import mode achieves this result? Option A. Merge. Option B. Atomic. Option C. Best effort. Option D. Replace. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Atomic. Question 3. Which components must be configured for the BGP root reflector policy to take effect? Option A. Spine fabric interface overrides and profiles. Option B. Access policies and profiles. Option C. Pod policy groups and profiles. Option D. Leaf fabric interface overrides and profiles. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Pod policy groups and profiles. Question 4. Which type of policy configures the suppression of faults that are generated from a port being down? Option A. Fault lifecycle assignment. Option B. Event lifecycle assignment. Option C. Fault severity assignment. Option D. Event severity assignment. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Fault severity assignment. Question 5. Which type of profile needs to be created to deploy an access port policy group? Option A. Attachable entity. Option B. Pod. Option C. Module. Option D. Leaf interface. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Attachable entity. Question 6. A situation causes a fault to be raised on the EPIC. The ACI administrator does not want that fault to be raised because it is not directly relevant to the environment. Which action should the administrator take to prevent the fault from appearing? Option A. Under System to Faults. Right-click on the fault and select Acknowledge Fault so that acknowledged faults will immediately disappear. Option B. Create a stats threshold policy with both rising and falling thresholds defined so that the critical severity threshold matches the squelched threshold. Option C. Under System to Faults. Right-click on the fault and select Ignore Fault to create a fault severity assignment policy that hides the fault. Option D. Create a new global health score policy that ignores specific faults as identified by their unique fault code. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Under System to Faults. Right-click on the fault and select Ignore Fault to create a fault severity assignment policy that hides the fault. Question 7. A radius user resolves its role via the Cisco AV pair. What object does the Cisco AV pair resolve to? Option A. Tenant. Option B. Security domain. Option C. Primary Cisco EPIC. Option D. Managed object class. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, managed object class. Question 8. Which feature dynamically assigns or modifies the EPG association of virtual machines based on their attributes? Option A, Wiseni contracts. Option B, standard contracts. Option C, application EPGs. Option D, USEG EPGs. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, USEG EPGs. Question 9. Which feature allows firewall ACLs to be configured automatically when new endpoints are attached to an EPG? Option A, ARP gleaning. Option B, dynamic endpoint attach. Option C, hardware proxy. Option D, network stitching. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, dynamic endpoint attach. Question 10. An engineer is implementing Cisco ACI at a large platform as a service provider using APIC controllers, 9396PX leaf switches, and 9336PQ spine switches. The leaf switch ports are configured as IEEE 802. 1P ports. Where does the traffic exit from the EPG in IEEE 802? 1P mode in this configuration? Option A, from leaf ports tagged as VLAN0. Option B, from leaf ports untagged. Option C, from leaf ports tagged as VLAN 4094. Option D, from leaf ports tagged as VLAN1. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, from leaf ports tagged as VLAN0. Question 11. How is an EPG extended outside of the ACI fabric? Option A, create an external bridged network that is assigned to a leaf port. Option B, create an external routed network that is assigned to an EPG. Option C, enable unicast routing within an EPG. Option D, statically assign a VLAN ID to a leaf port in an EPG. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, statically assign a VLAN ID to a leaf port in an EPG. Question 12. Where is the COOP database located? Option A, leaf. Option B, spine. Option C, APIC. Option D, endpoint. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, spine. Question 13. Which description regarding the initial APIC cluster discovery process is true? Option A, the APIC uses an internal IP address from a pool to communicate with the nodes. Option B, every switch is assigned a unique AV by the APIC. Option C, the APIC discovers the IP address of the other APIC controllers by using Cisco Discovery Protocol. Option D, the ACI fabric is discovered starting with the spine switches. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, the APIC uses an internal IP address from a pool to communicate with the nodes. Question 14. Refer to the exhibit. Which two components should be configured as root reflectors in the ACI fabric? Choose 2. Option A, spine 1. Option B, APIC 1. Option C, spine 2. Option D, leaf 1. Option A, leaf 2. Option F, APIC 2. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, spine 1. Option C, spine 2. Question 15. When creating a subnet within a bridge domain, which configuration option is used to specify the network visibility of the subnet? Option A, limit IP learning to subnet. Option B, scope. Option C, gateway IP. Option D, subnet control. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, scope. Question 16. What does a bridge domain represent? Option A, Layer 3 cloud. Option B, Layer 2 forwarding construct. Option C, tenant. Option D, Physical domain. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, layer 2 forwarding construct. Question 17. Which table holds IP address, MAC address and VXLAN, VLAN information on a Cisco ACI leaf? Option A, endpoint. Option B, adjacency. Option C, RIB. Option D, ARP. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, endpoint. Question 18. Which two types of interfaces are supported on border leaf switches to connect to an external router? Choose 2. Option A, subinterface with VXLAN tagging. Option B, subinterface with 802.1q tagging. Option C, FEX host interface. Option D, out-of-band interface. Option A, switch virtual interface. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, subinterface with 802.1q tagging. Option A, switch virtual interface. Question 19. Which Cisco APIC configuration prevents a remote network that is not configured on the bridge domain from being learned by the fabric? Option A, enable limit IP learning to subnet. Option B, enable unicast routing. Option C, enable IP data plane learning. Option D, enable ARP flooding to BD. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, enable limit IP learning to subnet. Question 20. An engineer needs to deploy a leaf access port policy group in ACI fabric to support the following requirements. Requirements. Choose 2. Option A, link level policy. Option B, L2 interface policy. Option C, slow drain policy. Option D, ingress data plane policing policy. Option A, ingress control plane policing policy. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, link level policy. Option D, ingress data plane policing policy. Question 21. A customer migrates a legacy environment to Cisco ACI. A layer 2 trunk is configured to interconnect the two environments. The customer also builds ACI fabric in an application-centric mode. Which feature should be enabled in the bridge domain to reduce instability during the migration? Option A, set multi-destination flooding to flood in BD. Option B, enable flood in encapsulation. Option C, set multi-destination flooding to flood in encapsulation. Option D, disable endpoint data plane learning. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, set multi-destination flooding to flood in encapsulation. Question 22. New SC hosts are procured in a data center compute expansion project. An engineer must update the configuration on the Cisco APIC controllers to support the addition of the new servers to the existing VMM domain. Which action should be taken to support this change? Option A, create a range of internal VLANs in the associated VLAN pool. Option B, set the encapsulation mode as VXLAN. Option C, enable infrastructure VLAN in the associated app. Option D, map the leaf interface selector to the app that is associated with the VMM domain. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, map the leaf interface selector to the app that is associated with the VMM domain. Question 23. An engineer is extending an EPG out of the ACI fabric using static path binding. Which statement about the endpoints is true? Option A, endpoints must connect directly to the ACI leaf port. Option B, external endpoints are in a different bridge domain than the endpoints in the fabric. Option C, endpoint learning encompasses the MAC address only. Option D, external endpoints are in the same EPG as the directly attached endpoints. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, External endpoints are in the same EPG as the directly attached endpoints. Question 24. Which setting prevents the learning of endpoint IP addresses whose subnet does not match the bridge domain? Subnet. Option A. Limit IP learning to network, setting within the bridge domain. Option B. Limit IP learning to subnet, setting within the EPG. Option C. Limit IP learning to network, setting within the EPG. Option D. Limit IP learning to subnet, setting within the bridge domain. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Limit IP learning to subnet, setting within the bridge domain. Question 25. Which endpoint learning operation is completed on the egress leaf switch when traffic is received from an L3 out? Option A. The source MAC and IP address of the traffic is learned as a local endpoint. Option B. The source MAC address of the traffic is learned as a remote endpoint. Option C. No source MAC or IP address of the traffic is learned as a remote endpoint. Option D. The source IP address of the traffic is learned as a remote endpoint. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. No source MAC or IP address of the traffic is learned as a remote endpoint. Question 26. Refer to the exhibit. Which two objects are created as a result of the configuration? Choose two. Option A. Application profile. Option B. Attachable ape. Option C. Bridge domain. Option D. Endpoint group. Option A. VRF. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Bridge domain. Option E. VRF. Question 27. What must be enabled in the bridge domain to have the endpoint table learn the IP addresses of endpoints? Option A. L2 unknown unicast. Flood. Option B. GAP-based detection. Option C. Unicast routing. Option D. Subnet scope. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Unicast routing. Question 28. An engineer is extending EPG connectivity to an external network. The external network houses the Layer 3 gateway and other end hosts. Which ACI bridge domain configuration should be used? Option A. Forwarding. Custom L2 unknown unicast. Hardware proxy L3 unknown multicast flooding. Flood multi-destination flooding. Flood in BD-UP flooding. Enabled. Option B. Forwarding. Custom L2 unknown unicast. Flood L3 unknown multicast flooding. Flood multi-destination flooding. Flood in BD-UP flooding. Enabled. Option C. Forwarding. Custom L2 unknown unicast. Hardware proxy L3 unknown multicast flooding. Flood multi-destination flooding. Flood in BD-UP flooding. Disabled. Option D. Forwarding. Custom L2 unknown unicast. Flood L3 unknown multicast flooding. Flood multi-destination flooding. Flood in BD-UP flooding. Disabled. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Forwarding. Custom L2 unknown unicast. Flood L3 unknown multicast flooding. Flood multi-destination flooding. Flood in BD-UP flooding. Enabled. Question 29. An engineer configured a bridge domain with the hardware proxy option for Layer 2 unknown unicast traffic. Which statement is true about this configuration? Option A. The leaf switch drops the Layer 2 unknown unicast packet if it is unable to find the MAC address in the local forwarding tables. Option B. The Layer 2 unknown hardware proxy lacks support of the topology change notification. Option C. The leaf switch forwards the Layers 2 unknown unicast packets to all other leaf switches if it is unable to find the MAC address in its local forwarding tables. Option D. The spine switch drops the layer 2 unknown unicast packet if it is unable to find the MAC address in the proxy database. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. The spine switch drops the layer 2 unknown unicast packet if it is unable to find the MAC address in the proxy database. Question 30. An engineer configured layer 2 extension from the ACI fabric and changed the layer 2 unknown unicast policy from flood to hardware proxy. How does this change affect the flooding of the L2 unknown unicast traffic? Option A. It is forwarded to one of the spines to perform as a spine proxy. Option B. It is flooded within the whole fabric. Option C. It is dropped by the leaf when the destination endpoint is not present in the endpoint table. Option D. It is forwarded to one of the APICs to perform as a proxy. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. It is forwarded to one of the spines to perform as a spine proxy. Question 31. When the subnet is configured on a bridge domain, on which physical devices is the gateway IP address configured? Option A. All leaf switches and all spine nodes. Option B. Only spine switches where the bridge domain of the tenant is present. Option C. Only leaf switches where the bridge domain of the tenant is present. Option D. All border leaf nodes where the bridge domain of the tenant is present. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Only leaf switches where the bridge domain of the tenant is present. Question 32. Which method does the Cisco ACI fabric use to load balance multi-destination traffic? Option A. Forwarding tag trees. Option B. PIM routing. Option C. Spanning trees. Option D. Shortest path trees. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Forwarding tag trees. Question 33. What happens to the traffic flow when the Cisco ACI fabric has a stale endpoint entry for the destination endpoint? Option A. The leaf switch does not learn the source endpoint through data plane learning. Option B. The leaf switch drops the traffic that is destined to the endpoint. Option C. The leaf switch floods the traffic to the endpoint throughout the fabric. Option D. The leaf switch sends the traffic to the wrong destination leaf. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. The leaf switch sends the traffic to the wrong destination leaf. Question 34. Which action sets layer 2 loop migration in an ACI fabric with a layer 2 out configured? Option A. Enable MCP on the ACI fabric. Option B. Disable STP in the external network. Option C. Disable STP on the ACI fabric. Option D. Enable STP on the ACI fabric. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Enable MCP on the ACI fabric. Question 35. An engineer is implementing a connection that represents an external bridged network. Which two configurations are used? Choose two. Option A. Layer 2 remote fabric. Option B. Layer 2 outside. Option C. Layers 2 internal. Option D. Static path binding. Option A. VXLAN outside. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Layer 2 outside. Option D. Static path binding. Question 36. Which two actions extend a layer 2 domain beyond the ACI fabric? Choose two. Option A. Extending the routed domain out of the ACI fabric. Option B. Creating a single-homed layer 3 out. Option C. Creating an external physical network. Option D. Extending the bridge domain out of the ACI fabric. Option A. Extending the EPG out of the ACI fabric. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Extending the bridge domain out of the ACI fabric. Option A. Extending the EPG out of the ACI fabric. Question 37. When Cisco ACI connects to an outside Layers 2 network, where does the ACI fabric flood the STP/BPDU frame? Option A. Within the bridge domain. Option B. Within the UPIC. Option C. Within the access encap VLAN. Option D. Between all the spine and leaf switches. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, within the access encap VLAN. Question 38. On which two interface types should a user configure storm control to protect against broadcast traffic? Choose 2. Option A. UPIC facing interfaces. Option B. Port channel on a single leaf switch. Option C. All interfaces on the leaf switches in the fabric. Option D. Endpoint facing trunk interface. Option A. Fabric uplink interfaces on the leaf switches. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Port channel on a single leaf switch. Option D. Endpoint facing trunk interface. Question 39. Which two dynamic routing protocols are supported when using Cisco ACI to connect to an external Layer 3 network? Choose 2. Option A. IBGP. Option B. VXLAN. Option C. IS. Option D. RIPv2. Option A. eBGP. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, IBGP. Option E, eBGP. Question 40. What must be configured to redistribute externally learned OSPF routes within the ACI fabric? Option A. Route control profile. Option B. BGP route reflector. Option C. BGP interleak route map. Option D. PIM sparse mode. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, BGP route reflector.